The restaurant was quiet, refined, filled with people who spoke in low voices and made decisions worth millions between bites. At a corner table sat a billionaire CEO. Perfect posture. Controlled expression. A life built on precision. She wasn't there to relax. She was there out of habit. Because routine was easier than silence. Then, something caught her attention. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just different. A few tables away sat a man with 2 children. A single dad. Simple clothes. Worn hands. And a table filled with laughter. The kids were smiling, talking over each other, sharing food like it was the best meal in the world. And he was listening. Really listening. Smiling in a way that couldn't be faked. The CEO frowned slightly. Not in judgment. In confusion. She had seen families before. Perfect ones. Carefully presented ones. But this felt real. Her fork paused mid-air. Then slowly, she lowered it. Because for some reason, she couldn't look away. "Dad, you take this one," the little girl said, pushing her plate toward him. "No, you eat it," he replied gently. "You need it more." They laughed. Argued playfully. Shared anyway. The CEO's grip tightened slightly around her fork. Because something about that moment felt unfamiliar. No phones. No distractions. No distance. Just connection. Her assistant, sitting across from her, noticed the shift. "Is everything all right?" he asked. She didn't answer. Because she was still watching. "Dad, tell the story again," one of the kids said excitedly. He chuckled. "Again? You've heard it 100 times. Please." And he did. Without hesitation. As if there was nowhere else he'd rather be. The CEO's expression softened, just slightly. Because no one had ever asked her to tell a story twice. No one had waited for her like that. Her assistant followed her gaze. "A regular family," he said quietly. But she shook her head. "No," she replied. "Not regular. Because there was something their money couldn't create." And then, without warning, she stood up. Her assistant blinked. "Ma'am?" But she didn't respond. She walked straight toward their table. Ignoring the looks. Ignoring the whispers. Ignoring everything. The single dad noticed her approach and stood slightly, unsure. "Can I help you?" he asked politely. The children looked up, curious. For a moment, she just stood there. Looking at them. At something she didn't fully understand. Then, she did the unthinkable. "Can I sit with you?" she asked. Silence. Complete. Unexpected. The kids looked at their father. He hesitated for a second. Then nodded slowly. "Of course." And just like that, The world she knew shifted. She sat down carefully, as if stepping into a world she didn't fully understand. Not because it was unfamiliar in appearance, but because of how it felt. Warm. Unfiltered. Real. The children stared at her for a moment, then smiled. Not impressed. Not intimidated. Just curious. "Hi," the little girl said. The CEO blinked slightly. Then, almost unsure. "Hi," she replied. No one had greeted her like that in years. Without fear. Without expectation. The single dad watched quietly. "You don't have to stay," he said gently. "We don't want to interrupt your evening." She shook her head. "You're not," she said. A pause. "I think I needed this." The word surprised even her. Because she didn't plan to say them. The kids went back to eating, talking again like nothing unusual had happened. And somehow, that made it easier. "What were you talking about?" she asked softly. "Dad's story," the boy said excitedly. "He always tells it the same way, but we like it." She looked at him. "Will you tell it again?" she asked. The single dad smiled faintly. "Looks like I don't have a choice," he said. And he began. Simple words. Small moments. Nothing extraordinary. But full of meaning. She listened. Really listened. Not to analyze. Not to respond. Just to hear. And for the first time in a long time, her mind wasn't racing. Her phone wasn't calling. Her world wasn't demanding anything from her. It was just quiet. Peaceful. Halfway through the story, the little girl laughed. Then leaned against her father's arm. The CEO's eyes softened. Because that small gesture felt bigger than anything she owned. "You love them a lot," she said quietly. He nodded without hesitation. "They're everything." No calculation. No hesitation. Just truth. She looked down at the table. Then at her hands. Perfect. Controlled. Empty. "I built everything," she said slowly. "Companies. Success. Power." A pause. "But I don't have this." The words felt heavier than anything she had said all day. He didn't respond right away. Because some truths didn't need fixing. "You still can," he said finally. She looked at him. Surprised. "Not everything comes back once it's gone," she replied. He shook his head slightly. "Some things don't come back," he said. "But some things can still begin." Silence. Soft. Thoughtful. The kids finished eating, smiling, content. And she realized something simple. They weren't happy because of what they had. They were happy because of who they had. She stood up slowly. Not because she wanted to leave, but because she understood something she hadn't before. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" he asked. She looked at the children one last time. Then back at him. For reminding me what matters. And as she walked back to her table, leaving behind a world she couldn't buy, one truth stayed with her. Sometimes, the richest moments in life happen at the simplest tables.